Welcome to the Supplier Diversity and Inclusion podcast by Fips Consulting. In this podcast series, I speak with international guests who share their experience on supplier diversity and inclusion. Today's guest is Nish Wickramasinghe, founder and director at Curious Agency, which you can find at curiousagency.co.uk, located in the UK. Nish, it's so great to have you. I know we go a long way back when I was still at corporate, and I was always amazed by what your company did and how you did it differently than others. So now we're here, and I'm glad you're my guest.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. We have known each other a long time, more years than I probably want to count.
Yeah. So, and I think we never talked about this really, but I really wonder, so how did it all start with Curious Agency? So what's the whole background? Can you tell me about that?
Sure. How far do you want me to go back? Shall I go back to sort of school, for example?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Okay. I mean, school in London was tough. Anybody who's been to school in London will know. But I come from a long line of doctors. So everyone on my father's side of the family is some kind of consultant, anaesthetist, surgeon, whatever. And then I think probably to my dad's disappointment, he found me, and I wanted to do art, as he called it. And it was only because at school I thought a natural aptitude towards it. My teachers said I did. And it became obvious that I wasn't cut out for medicine. And the thought of, I don't know, being responsible for someone's life like that is quite a difficult thing to get over. But also, it didn't interest me. So I studied fine art at school and realised that was a terrible mistake. I wasn't a fine artist. My then art teacher said, "You're not a fine artist. I think you made a terrible choice, but you seem more graphic-y, designy." And they transferred me to the graphic design course, which was very unusual for a school in London or a school anywhere to offer that as an A-level. So I studied graphic design from the age of 18, which is rare, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of, then went on to university at Loughborough, which was a brilliant university, still in the top 10 universities. I was, fortunate enough to take the right portfolio of work, etc., and got accepted there. And meeting those lecturers, and particularly Alison Beecham, and I'm on a Facebook group still. So she's got an incredible fan base, and I've never had the opportunity to go back and find her because she just sort of disappeared off the face of the earth. But one lecturer can make all the difference. And that's sort of at the age of, 19, 20? So we're going back a long time.
Wow.
But it's the way that she got us to think about an idea. And with all my other lecturers I had, which were probably all brilliant, no one approached it in this way. And it was that way I started to do this. You've got to think differently. What would Alison Beecham do? I've got a problem now. What would Alison Beecham do? She would just jump on this and turn it and do it, and she'll do it really quickly. And she'd come up with a great idea. But an inspirational teacher going back for decades. So after that, I did the usual sort of thing. I worked at loads of agencies, and I ended up as a creative head at a really renowned agency in Leicestershire. And I was there for more time, I think, than most people. I think there was like 7 or 8 years. There's a bit of a revolving door there, meaning that you come in, you burn out, and you leave. But that was a really tough environment. And when I've gone to freelance at other places after I left there, I struggled with their lack of pace and the lack of ingenuity and thinking, and the way that the boss got you to go, yeah, that's great, but there's a better idea. There's a better idea. You've got to kill your darlings, get really precise with the point of this, understand your audience. How will they react? Why will they react? And a lot of it goes back to early days of Wolf Ollins and creating ads and creating campaigns that get people to react, not sit there and go, wow, that's a lovely ad. So that kind of teaching of Alison Beecham then carried on years later. And I don't know, when I speak to other friends of mine who are in my industry, they've never had that. They've never worked for that kind of agency. So double lessons. And then I think one day I was sort of sitting there thinking, could this be more effective?
Yeah.
Is there a better way where we don't have account managers that are the sort of go-between and do a lot of work of translating what the client thinks they want and then translates it, and there's so many degrees of translation and loss in it. So the agency created a role for me where I would work directly with our clients. No other creative head was doing that. And they just thought that I was getting more from the client by asking them deeper questions about what makes your customer tick. What are you trying to sell? Where is your largest margin for profit? What is it that the CFO wants, the MD wants, the marketing team want? What's worked, what hasn't worked before, and et cetera, just loads of questions. And I think that's why Curious Agency, because you've got to ask lots of questions, and out of which come good answers. Children do it. I remember my daughter, you used to ask 100 questions, and you think, just choose the ice cream. I don't need to explain all of this. But as you get older, you get kind of almost like, you lose that ability to feel like you can ask a question without people thinking, oh, they should know this. Or
it's just like that. When you're little, you're like, why? Why is it like that? Why are the trees green? Whatever, right? And when you get older, they're green.
Just accept it. Yeah. You just accept it because it's always that way.
Yeah.
And I think asking questions, though, yes, it does seem time consuming, but if you can't ask questions, you can't think about things differently. Yeah. If you can't think about things differently, you're going to do the same thing over and over again.
Right. And same thing doesn't bring any change.
Yeah. And you and I, we're all about change, right? So when people are saying innovation, somebody somewhere has got to ask a question of, why are we doing this?
Right.
Because it works, but is there a better way of doing it?
And if you want to improve, how did you do it? And now what can we do better to make it work?
Yeah. And ask different people. Don't ask the people that you always ask. Ask somebody that's not in this team. They might have a brilliant answer. And it just takes a little bit of time up front to speed up the process later.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm a fan of having as many voices at the beginning of a project as you can, and then have less as you go by, because you can't involve everyone all the time. Right. But sometimes I find, working on projects with clients, you start by talking to one, and along the process, other voices are coming in. They've all had opinions, but they weren't at the beginning. So things don't end smoothly because the approval process is getting wider rather than narrower. But
but it's great to hear your story and how it all started. And now, it totally all makes sense with your company name and everything around it. So how did you hear about the concept of supplier diversity and inclusion?
I'll name a person. So Raj Patani, he worked at MSD UK. And I remember, Raj, I think I got a random call from him one day, or the call wasn't random, but the conversation was, and he introduced me to it, and he said, just come along and talk to some of our corporates and understand why they think there's value in it, rather than me trying to explain it. So I think I went to an event at Edgbaston. I met a couple of people there. I bet it was probably Matt. He sounds familiar. And he talked about, the thing that I was saying before about you want to hear from as many people as possible at the beginning. And you want to try to get different opinions and different perspectives. And I thought, oh my God, this makes perfect sense. I didn't know that it had to be supply diversity. or that it even had to be a name of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed to be that idea of bringing in different people into the mix, not using the same suppliers. That was a new term for me as well. But using the same people all the time, just because it's comfortable. I mean, we do that now, right? If we're sending something to print, it isn't let's get 3 quotes, because that's not what this is about. It's like let's find somebody who's got a different process for delivering this. They might be more expensive, they might be less expensive, but they might deliver me something that I haven't had before.
I totally can sign that, because supplier diversity and inclusion is not just about providing equal opportunities, but it's also bringing lots of new thinking and maybe innovation, and it's just opening up the doors to suppliers that you might not have worked with before.
And I apologise, my dogs have just burst into the room having learned how to open a door, but we'll let them contribute. So that's the noise in the background. So if anyone's listening in, it's not me. It is 2 very excited dogs who've learned how to open a door.
Very good.
But I think that's the thing. It's like, you find people in different parts of wherever. And in lockdown, we met people from around the world. And I find that Sean comes up with different ideas to me all the time. He works with me. He used to work here, then he left. And I think the same thing with Sarah. Used to work, went away, came back, and they've met different people. So they've met different people who can deliver things. Also, I think when I look at Sean and my life, his personal life and his sort of social life is different to mine. So he meets different people, he experiences different things on weekends, which then he brings into work and says, I saw this really cool thing. Did this. And that's great, because if everybody was me and we were 50-something years old and we all lived in a village, we would all come back with the same story of these heads. So we encourage that. Like at work, we'll sit down on pretty much every day and just talk nonsense. And out of nonsense, you think, go back a second. What did you just say about that thing you just said? That I could use that in this.
Wow, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about talking to people and getting different inputs and insights, and be out there and just learn, right?
Yeah. And I know it probably comes across often, and I never know if this really works, but if you work in an office building that's got other companies in and they don't do what you do at all, that's brilliant. So in our building just out in the middle of Leicestershire, there are companies that make shoes, there are companies that make sell bikes. There's a digital 4D rendering team, and I know this guy from years back because we used to work together at this agency. And we meet up every couple of weeks and have a coffee and just talk about stuff and help each other out. And out of which you find, like, that's a cool thing you guys are doing. How did you? What's that? And I think those things help. Just talk to lots of people. Have a good time. Don't talk about work. Never talk about work.
And diversity is not just looking at the workforce or at the supply chain. It's also part of our lives, right? And if we're always together with the same people, coming from the same corners, looking the same, talking the same, we don't get that diversification in our lives or in from our opinions and our views. So I think it's important throughout all parts of ourselves as well.
Totally agree. I think that's it's one of the things about supply diversity, or when you get involved with it, that not everybody's got the same view, which is good, and the people that we all know probably don't come from the same background, the same place. I don't like the word journey because it gets overused, but people have got to hear via different paths. So they've all had different life experiences.
Right.
And it's just a nice way to talk to lots of people about lots of different things.
Cool.
Some of it's work.
Yeah. It is. We will probably not have a lot of inventions if we would have done things the way we've always done it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And happy accidents as well, you know?
Yeah. True. So Nish, did supplier diversity and inclusion programs from corporates and or the certification have any impact on your business?
So, right, it's an interesting question. I think the certification helps the corporates. It's a certification that gives them a shortcut to that due diligence that you are who you say you are, and you are
Right.
a woman-owned business or a diverse-owned business, and the ratio is appropriate, you know, the 51%, 50%, etc. So I think that helps them. But supplier diversity programs, I don't recall ever being on a supplier diversity program for many of the corporates. But I think supply diversity as a whole does seem to work. Because if it wasn't for the meetups, we wouldn't meet the organisations that we've met.
Right.
So in that regard, I think it certainly works. But when I say meet up, not necessarily in person, it can be online. There's different ways of meeting people, but without it, I don't think you could meet those corporates or those organisations.
Right. So it's great to have access to corporates and the network, but the certification itself, it wasn't really something that has increased business for you, but it was more getting access to the corporates and which means through these organizations where you got the certification. Absolutely.
I think that's pretty much it. Though I would say to anybody who's thinking about it, I think you need to get certified.
Right.
If you're self-certified or not certified, I just don't think that you are in the eye line of the people with the spend. They've got to be able to attribute something to someone, so it's better to pick somebody who's certified and is proven than not.
Right. Yeah. Also, corporates usually have to, as you said, right, they have to make sure that the spend is kind of, there's a due diligence, it's auditable and all that, and that is done through the certifications. Yeah,
and there's a couple of places to get to become certified, and I mean that's a good thing. It was a simple process, and once you're certified, it's year on year. The recertification is very simple. Has anything changed in the structure of the business? No. Great. Then it was what it was before.
Yeah. So hearing that and hearing that it opened doors for you to get access to corporate contacts or corporate networks. Are there any success stories that you would like to share or that you can share?
Oh, yeah, I can share. That's interesting. I'd never like to talk about the work because each project has a certain level of NDA, etc. And I don't want to say anything that should get me into trouble. But one thing I can say is the supply diversity does work. It certainly worked for us. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have met Cummings, Eaton and Meta, who we've all worked with. And there's other people we've met along that journey, but that's come through supply diversity. So we've got 3 lovely clients that we would never have had the opportunity to meet or talk to before if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. So are there any success stories that you can share that you had with any of the corporates that you met through the supplier diversity networks?
Let me share them 2, if that will help you, that are in the public domain, right? Because we never want to say about, because a lot of the work that we sometimes do is internal transformation or perception change as an agency. So we get involved in that, and that isn't always externally visible, but is making changes internally within an organisation or raising awareness, etc. For Meta, they have a really good supply diversity program. And one of the things that they they identified as that they needed to do was help suppliers, diverse suppliers within their businesses, etc., be able to present themselves better when they come and meet Meta. Right? That's a terrible alliteration, but it's to make sure that when somebody gets that opportunity to come and present, they are the best they can be. So for that, we created a digital publication. It's out there. It's on the Meta platforms, and they share that internally, externally. You'll find it on LinkedIn. You'll find it on my LinkedIn if you want to trawl through that where the link is. But maybe you can share this link on this podcast, Andrea.
Right. I will also add it to the comments.
Awesome. And what that will do is just go through 5 simple processes or steps that people should follow. And it isn't things that we've made up. We actually interviewed buyers from Meta to say, what are their red flags? What are the green flags? What is it that they look for? What makes a really good presentation deck? What makes a really good capability statement? And it's there for every business, whether you're diverse or not, whatever business that you're pitching to large corporations, 5 steps to follow from making an introduction to presenting.
Love it. Yeah. I also did some kind of study on that as well, and I published a white paper with obstacles and kind of do's and don'ts for smaller businesses when working with corporates. So interesting finds, and I think it can help anyone, and not just smaller businesses, but also bigger companies to win the pitch.
I agree, and you just touched on that, something that I wanted to say as well. It's not just for diverse businesses, right? This is for any business, and sometimes I look at that and think, when we're pitching, we should reflect on our own findings, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good resource for everybody, and I don't think any other corporation has done anything like that. So it's out there. Use it, benefit from it, do well.
Perfect. Okay, I put the link into the comment section of this episode.
There's another example I can give you about Eaton. So a project that we did last year for Eaton, it was their second D&I report, Power of Perspectives it's called. And that Eaton team is fantastic. They are very open about everything, about gender split, about ethnicity within the organization, the things that they're doing to change that. So that, they want more female engineers, for example, because and they're active about explaining that. So we did a report for them last year, and our client was so excited. He nominated it for a PRSA award in America, which to be honest, I hadn't heard of. But if you work in PR, it's very big news. So we were getting regular updates of, this is the voting niche, this is where we're going, and he's very happy. So we did the report again this year, different angle, but fingers crossed, maybe it'll do even better this year with the PRSA. So
cool, great stuff. Is there anything that you would say to an entrepreneur about supplier diversity and inclusion, or what would you say to an entrepreneur?
I think supply diversity is here for a while. I think it's worthwhile using it to the advantage that you want to use it for. So if you, whether you're a small business or a large business and you want to talk to those even monolith businesses, this is a good way to meet people.
Right.
And, I think you got it on your white paper, we've got it on our EPUB. There's ways of meeting people, right? You don't go in there with a proposal ready. There isn't a contract waiting for you. But it might be the first steps to start a conversation with somebody you can carry a conversation on with. And, I think it's not just supply diversity, it's just generally networking, isn't it? The kind of people that, you think, everybody, a lot of people can say a lot of things, but some people follow up. So whether it's networking, whether it's supply diversity networking, whether it's being a part of any organization, that's the way I look at it. It's a business club.
Right. It's a great.
Yeah, it's just a business club, and we all do it, right? Whether you're in Switzerland or England, we're all in business clubs.
Right.
But it's just a case of finding one that is actually active. So whether it's supply diversity or whether it's the 9 o'clock breakfast club or whatever, just, do that.
Right. And I think, very important for small businesses anyway to network and get out there and meet people. So, that's just another opportunity.
It's part of your marketing mix, right? So if you're putting your spend into LinkedIn marketing or anything like that, I think you just squirrel away a few £100 each year and say, right, well, this is my networking marketing budget. And you do what you can with it. You go to the right events, but you've got to keep going. You can't just turn up once and expect sign, seal, do the contract. What people do. It's just ridiculous, but you can't just turn up once and walk away with stuff. But maybe you can, but I've never known anyone to do it.
One last thought from your side to close this podcast.
There's a comment from me, which is to thank anybody who's listened to this for listening to it. And I don't know about you, Andrew, but I really hope that we can help the next entrepreneur to be successful. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be a success story for the podcast as well.
I think if anybody listens to any of this and they can make it work and they get somewhere, I feel they are duty bound to write a comment on your podcast to say, Andrea, thank you. This your podcast series works.
Yeah, please reach out if there is if you learned anything that you think you can that can help you to win business.
For sure.
So Nish, thanks so much for all your personal insights and also your business insights. That was such an interesting conversation. So thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Good luck, everyone.
If you want to make your supply chain more inclusive, reach out via fipsconsulting.com or Fips Consulting on LinkedIn. Listen to my next episodes where I talk with more experts about supplier diversity and inclusion and the impact it has on their business. Reach out if you have any inputs or topics around supplier diversity and inclusion you want me to talk about, or if you have any success stories you can share. Thanks much for listening, and bye, Diverzone.